Yo, what's going on, people? We back. We're out of the play-in and into the playoffs, baby. Let's get it. I don't know why I did that, but so we're two games into the first round of the playoffs, and the first game that we're gonna talk about is the Suns versus Thunder, right? And I'll say this: despite Devin Booker having a pretty bad game, all things considered, the Suns played really well. I will not deny. Um, I think the lead did get it to for the Thunder. For the Thunder, I think the lead did get up to 17 or 19. One of those two, and it looked like it was going to get out of hand. But it never did. And the Suns, they stayed in it. They were able to. They did make a late push in the fourth to get down to 10, and look like they were gonna end up winning, or at least at best tying the game. They just didn't have enough firepower to do it. I mean, they did lose 120 to 107, and yes, the lead, the game, the ending score says, oh, it was a 13-point win for the Thunder. But if you actually watch the game, it's, for the most part, it was not even that bad of a game for the Sun. Like I said, though, yes, Devin Booker did have a bad game, but all things considered, they played well with how bad they were playing overall. Moving on, we have Pistons and Magic. This was a really, well, I will say, for the first half, it was a really slow down, real grinded out kind of game, right? And it was tied 46-46 at half. So the third quarter is where everything is hit. The Pistons outscored the Magic 36-18, and at one point in the third, the Magic had only scored 3 points that whole quarter, and that's what really set the tone for the fourth quarter. That no matter what, so that third quarter explosion by the Pistons really set them up really nicely, and they ended up winning the game 98-83 after the Pistons did, not the Pistons, but the Magic did try to make a little comeback, but by then it was too little too late, and the lead was just too insurmountable for them. We got to see the return of PB Noj, which is Paolo Banchero. I think that's one of the funniest slander names I've ever heard in a hot minute. But yeah, we saw the turn of PB Noj, and the Pistons dominated. Lakers versus Rockets. I'm honestly surprised that the Lakers are up 2-0 on the Rockets right now. I thought it would be the complete opposite, but the Rockets up 2-0 on the Lakers, because the Lakers they have LeBron, and no disrespect to everyone else, but a whole bunch of LA Fitness niggas. Plus Mark. They got a whole bunch of LA Fitness niggas and then LeBron James. While the Rockets, they have such a very well constructed team that you would think they'd be in a better position right now, but they're looking at a 2-0 deficit. And if they don't step it up in these next two games, it's over. But like, if they don't play significantly better, I don't know, man, because this is a Rockets team that I thought that in the preseason, or in the postseason when they got KD, that they'd be a lot better. So I'm thinking, oh, this team gonna be dangerous. They're gonna be like a top 3 seed, and they're gonna make it. I feel like they're gonna have a chance in the finals. And it's like they just been kind of underwhelming me. Now it's not to no fault of their own. It's injuries and stuff like that, not being just not being simply healthy. It's not something that's like, it's not something you can like really plan for. So I'm not gonna hold it against them. But this is just like, I was just very disappointed. The Rockets, they did keep it close for the majority of the game. They did go down by double digits at one point, but they would come back at half. And there are various points where the Rockets had a chance to like take a lead, but it never happened. So, I mean, I'm kind of surprised, right? What's up, dude? So, I'm just kind of surprised by it. I thought it would have been a lot better for them. Because like I said, the Lakers, they don't. I didn't say that, but the Lakers, they don't have Luka. They don't have Austin Reeves. This should be a mismatch, but it's not. And that's the one thing I raised about it. Now, we have Blazers versus Spurs. And not the main thing, but the real big thing here is Victor. Victor Wembanyama did get a concussion, so we don't know what's gonna happen with him or anything like that. I do, pray that he is healthy, that he will be healthy for the game on Friday. But we don't know. But despite being down Wemby, the Spurs still almost won this. You know what I mean? Like obviously, the Spurs are a very well constructed team, so I'm not surprised by this. But the Blazers were able to hold out for the win. They were able to hold out 106-103 after I think Dylan. It was one of the guys that started names that start with D. It was either Dylan Harper, Devin Vassell, or De'Aaron Fox. One of them three missed like a game tying shot. But even then, the fact that they were still able to almost win the game despite missing their far and away best player, that speaks a lot. And I've said this in previous videos where a team is good when they're able to win without their best player, or they're competitive without their best player. And I think that just goes to show the good coaching that the Spurs have, and also how good these Spurs are as a team. Moving on, we have Philly and Boston. There's a lot of these games too that are just significantly different. Than the game one kind of person. Yeah, I think that just goes to show like the changes that were made in game plans. Like, okay, we're gonna do this differently. We're gonna try this differently. We're gonna try this a little bit more because we had a little bit more success with this. So I think it just shows that hey, they're adjusting, and this is what happened with Philly and Boston. What was his name? VJ Edgecombe, right? He had 30 points, like 10 rebounds, with assists, and like 6 assists. Once he had 30, 10, and 6, 30, 10, and 6 with no free throws, my nigga. He did that shit. No free throws. Shay, you can't do that. No free throws. Straight buckets. You can't do that, Shay. Stop it. I'm joking. Shay. So y'all gonna take this and say this Shay, but nah, it's jokes. But it was really like a close game throughout the whole. Philly did have a big lead there in the third, but the Boston would keep it close, and in the fourth, after the majority of the time, it was like a close game. Philly would eventually, start to pull away, and then eventually it did would end up being a 20-point game to end off with. So that's what it was. But yeah, no, I thought it was a really good game though. Like I said, VJ Edgecombe had a really phenomenal game. I mean, 30, 10, and 6, no free throws. But Tyrese Maxey, he did his thing too. I'm not going to discredit Tyrese Maxey because the boy did his thing as well. Now, Nuggets and Wolves. This was, a really great game. This was a really close game, and it really could have gone like either way. Honestly, there was maybe between 15 and 20 lead changes throughout the whole entire game, and really both teams had a chance to win it. Obviously that's how the game starts. But as the game went on, you could really see like, okay, either one of these teams could eventually come out and win the game. You know what I mean? A close fourth quarter, 5:52 left. The Nuggets lead 107-104. The Timberwolves though would, however, take the lead and hold it all the way through to win 119-114. But I really see this is like the third or fourth time that the Nuggets and Wolves have faced each other in the playoffs, and like anytime these teams play, it's like you can like if it's a close game the whole way through. No, there are times where it's not a close game, but if it's a close game the whole way through, then like it's like okay, it's really like just like a toss up. Like okay, who's gonna win this time? You know what I mean? Like which team is gonna be able to make the play or series of plays to actually determine the game. So like I said, Wolves were able to retake the lead with less than 5 minutes to go, less than 6 minutes to go, and they eventually ended up winning the game. Now we have Raptors versus Cleveland. There were a couple of games over this past weekend that I wasn't able to watch due to me being busy with other things in my life, and sometimes I'm just not able to catch these games. So if there's like a big jump, that's the reason why, because I'm not able to watch some of these games, because then I have other duties to attend to, right? So we have Magic versus not Magic, but Raptors versus Cleveland. A close first quarter would end. Okay, let me see. Cause I have my notes. How am I gonna frame this? Okay. So the first quarter was pretty. There was plenty of times where the game was close, but then there were also a few times where the game would be like at double digits or like it was either close or it was like a double digit lead, and there was no like real in between kind. There was a couple times where it was like there was a couple times where it was 6 and that was at half, and then it was 6-12 it was 40-34. There were a couple of times where it was like sort of close. It was like close, sort of close, and then like double digit lead. But no matter what the Raptors did, they just really, I would say this, the Raptors didn't really have a response or an answer, not even a response, an answer for what's his name? For what the name? D-Mitch and James Harden. Like them two niggas were just like literally whatever they want. They were going after what Chris Paul said. We running whoever offense. These niggas did whoever offense on these motherfuckers, bro. Like, I mean, it was going crazy, man. However, the Raptors were still able to somewhat keep it close for the majority, for a lot of the times, but eventually the Cavs would pull away for a little bit, and it would lead 104-90, and eventually end up winning 115-105. Moving on, you have Celtics and Sixers. This is really pretty much a blowout for pretty much the majority of it. I mean, the Celtics, this is like I said, a lot of the game 2 counterparts are a lot different than their game 1 counterparts, and this is one of those games that was just like a whole lot different. You know what I mean? I mean, like, it was 64-46 at half, and then 91-71. Yeah. No, 95. Yeah, 95. Yeah, 95-71 and after 3. And it was just like never really close. Like, there was no point outside like the first few minutes. It was like zeros. Like the first few minutes, I'm being so dead ass with you. Like the first few minutes was the only time that it was like really it was really ever close. So, moving on, we have the playing games, which is Warriors versus Suns, and then we have Magic v. First, we're gonna go Magic v. Suns, not what Magic v. Suns, Warriors v. Suns, right? And the Suns originally had a big 18-point lead after the end of the first. It was 33-15. The Suns had went on a 9-0 run to end the quarter, right? But the Warriors were playing much better in the second, and but even though the Suns were going to the half, the Warriors played much better, and the lead was down to 5, it was 40 to 45, 50 to 45, right? The lead would kind of stay close for the most part, but the Warriors would be down 9 after 3 as the lead was 78-69. And after that, like, it just kind of like the league sort of expanded, and then like the Warriors were still staying in it for the most part, and you would think like, oh, they're gonna make that comeback, they're gonna come back, they're gonna win the game, but no, it never happened. Suns kept them at bay, and the Suns will win 111-96. This may be the last time we ever see Steve Kerr coach. Honestly, it's just kind of crazy to think about, because you think of the Warriors, and let me not say all time, but you think the Warriors of like the past 10 to 15 years, and you think of coaching, you think of Mark Jackson, but you think the first name that would come to most people's mind is Steve Kerr, because that's who they associate the Warriors coach with. You might also get a little Don Nelson, because I think he did coach in 2010. He might have. I don't know. But you think the main person that you're mainly thinking of is Steve Kerr, because for the past 10 to 12 years, that's who the coach has been. It's been Steve Kerr, and he's been there throughout it all. Through the dynasty. Like he's been through it all, and it's like for this to might be his final season. It's kind of bittersweet. I saw a lot of people talk about it, how like even though they grew up, despising the Warriors, like they're like, dang, now we're gonna miss it, because it's like you're watching a dynasty end at this point, and honestly, as a Warriors fan, that's how I felt. And it's the same thing with me in football. Like when I saw Tom Brady retire, I was like, dang. Like, it still feels weird to say that Brady is retired to me, because like for my whole life watching football, I've Brady's always been there for the majority of the time, and now that he's been gone for a few years, it just like feels weird to be there, and it's like I watched the dynasty, and I also watched it die. So it's just I just kind of have like a bittersweet feeling towards that. So congrats to the Suns. Congrats to the Warriors for even making it to this. And if it is Steve Kerr's final season in the NBA, I'm glad to say that I was there to watch it. Then we got Magic and Hornets. This was a blowout. And that's all I gotta say. It was never close. Like I said, with the Sixers and Celtics game, the only time it was close was the first few minutes. So, yeah. But that is this week. I will see y'all next week with with games 3 and 4 most likely. Maybe a game 5, who knows. But yeah, we're in the playoffs now. The first week, and then this whole scenery right here is more than likely gonna change in the upcoming weeks, because I am moving out. So we're gonna be seeing a whole different new setup. We're gonna be seeing something else. Normal. And I'll see y'all guys next time. Peace.